All right. Welcome everybody to the webinar. We're going to give it just a minute or two here yet. I know it's early for the West Coast being right at 8 a.m. So we'll give it a minute and then we'll jump right in. I see people are still quite a few joining here. So 1 minute. All right. It looks like we're almost at the number that signed up here. So let's go ahead and jump in. Thank you again to all of you for taking time to join. I know this gap here between holidays is extremely busy, but we thought we would kick off this conversation here. That it'd be a good time to do that as everybody's really planning their big projects and key initiatives heading into FY25. And so again, thank you for being here. You're going to hear from myself, Jason Varelli, and Joe Baggett here today throughout the next hour. And then we will have a Q&A at the end. So if you have questions as we're going through, feel free to throw them in the Q&A chat feature and we'll address those at the end. But again, what we really wanted to do is take a minute to talk through a conversation that consultants, machine vendors, myself as a software provider, we're having all the time with wood manufacturers out there in the industry. And it's all about how do we address the challenges that we're facing with things like labor shortage and automation and how do we use and leverage AI and data better and all of these types of conversations. And so the three of us are working quite often in joint projects, and we wanted to just start that conversation here today. And we're happy to obviously dive in further individually as a follow-up. So just a quick introduction. My name is Bryce Nord. I am the head of sales for Syncly for our North America manufacturing business unit. I'm based out of Jasper, Indiana. I've been really in the furniture, kitchen and bath industry my entire career. Bread and butter is really kitchen and bath. That's where I came from before I joined Syncly. Yeah, just over 3.5 years ago, prior to the merger of 2020 and CompuSoft. So today I'm focused on partnering with hundreds of manufacturers out there in this exact industry for conversations like ERP, MES, WMS, 3D configuration, and also bridging the gap between point of sale retail and how manufacturers actually go to market as their sales engine. I've got with myself Jason Varelli, who I know most of you on the call probably know. Jason's the VP of Systems for BSA in the US and Canada. And I know is, again, partnered with hundreds and hundreds of wood manufacturers all over, specifically for wood systems. And then Joe Baggett, innovative wood process based out of Texas. Joe, kind of like myself, has been really in the wood manufacturing industry. I would say his entire life. He's on the board of the IWF, and Innovative Wood Process is a consulting company. Again, partnered with over 200 manufacturers in kitchen and bath, office furniture, and some residential home furnishings. And so the three of us today are going to tackle this conversation and looking forward to it. So again, what we're really here to do is talk through this in three phases: addressing the industry challenges, which Joe is going to talk through; exploring solutions that help solve for those industry challenges, which Jason's going to talk through; and then the software integration component, which I'll tackle. And that's really about connecting the dots, right, between the vision and the process and where you as an organization are looking to go, and the actual equipment out on the shop floor driving that automation or operational efficiency. And so it's really all about understanding how we can remove the data silos that exist throughout organizations today. We know that there's data silos throughout sales and marketing, finance, operations. Oftentimes, these groups or functions aren't talking to one another, or at least don't have visibility from a data standpoint. So it's driving inefficiency. It's reducing the amount of collaboration that you all have cross-functionally within the business, and overall, it's just a bottleneck for efficiency, for growth, for better utilization of resources. So that's really what we're going to dig into. And I think this slide really kind of sums up the team here today. Oftentimes, when we're talking to a manufacturer, um, they're they may only be involving, I would say, one part of the triangle, which really, I would say, if you can find and partner with a solid consultant that really understands the wood industry, and there's a handful of them for sure out there throughout North America. Finding a quality machine vendor that really understands equipment and the things that it can do, and the right equipment that you need based off of your current size of an organization and throughput and where you hope to be in the near future. And then likewise, a software provider. I think the big thing here is if you can find those that are industry focused, vertical providers that really know this industry inside and out, it's extremely powerful what a partnership with these folks and you as a manufacturer can do within your operations. So with that, I'm going to toss it over to Joe to really dig in to his portion. So over to you, Joe.
I really appreciate the introduction, and we're always so excited to participate in events like this. We have learned and continue to learn through sharing projects with mutual clients, and the ability to take that experience and share it as ideas is so important to IWPS and what we do along with industry partners. I just wanted to take a second and say thank you to Bryce and the entire Synkley team here. Also, to introduce IWPS and the role that we play in a lot of this as veteran implementers of software and automation in the wood industry. We have a team that is built specifically to service the wood industry. And in this context of software and automation working together to address adaptive challenges in the industry, improve the value of organizations, the sustainability, the scalability. Our company is really focused on that. We don't have a mission statement, but we do have a purpose statement. Yeah, so our purpose is to inform, inspire, equip, and empower leaders in the wood products industry to achieve the highest value. And that's really the reason why we started IWPS. That is short for Innovative Wood Process Solutions. We're very, very grateful to our clients, to the industry, and we want to continue to learn. And learning is one of the most valuable things that we can do, an organization can do. And so I just want to take a second here and share a few slides with you about what we have learned and what we are learning as we continue on this journey of process automation. So when people look at that, they say, well, what is process automation? Is that just a fancy word or a buzzword? And so in these first few slides, we're going to define that and work through what that specifically means. So one question I would just plant in your minds here is what matters the most? That is something that Peter Block talks about in a lot of the books that he's written, and focusing on and then working on things that matter the most. This discussion of software and automated machinery working together is something that does matter quite a bit. So let's dive into the first slide. When you look at what is process automation, one thing we look at is the future is not what it used to be, and our industry faces an adaptive challenge. And so when we attempt to solve that with technical solutions, it has to be done in the context of the adaptive challenges that we face. Sometimes people simply try to buy or apply blindly technical solutions from software, machinery, tooling to solve this adaptive challenge. And I'm going to paint a picture here for a second about what this adaptive challenge is and kind of go to a deeper level of how it really affects us. In the wood industry, our adaptive challenge is really shaped by a few things. One is the United States is still the largest consumer of durable wood goods in the world. And so we face pressures from imports in raw materials, components, and finished goods. And so to manufacture those or to do a blended strategy, that continues to affect this industry. The next part is our average age is over 48. The NACIS data will come out here in the next 3-year survey, but on average, our industry is 10 years older than general industry. And so when you look at that, it's just, okay, yeah, we're getting older as an industry. At the same time, while that's happening, our industry continues to shrink. We've lost 32% of our companies, 38% of our employees since 2001. And that consolidation continues. And there's many things that are driving that. But that consolidation, along with an aging workforce, along with pressure from imports, and then as you begin to look at how these things change, furniture, cabinets, those things, their models, their engineering, their demand, the rapid rate of introducing new colors, all kinds of other variation, those are all the external pressures that begin to put this adaptive challenge into an organization that manufactures durable wood good products. Wood good, good wood. And so when people look at an organization and say, okay, what are the best things we can do? What are the most valuable things that we can do? Understanding that adaptive challenge and then applying technical solutions in an end-to-end future state business process that specifically addresses those adaptive challenges and overall adaptive challenge is really one of the most important things that we can do. And so many times we look at silos and we look at small pieces, we look at segmented parts of the business. And so that next part is really about how this all fits together and how you make the most sense out of it. Automation refers to all components, not just machines, information, software, et cetera. And so when we talk about automation, we really look at it through a holistic standpoint. Automated systems. Everybody goes to Europe and sees these wonderful automated factories and fewer floor level people working at machines. And I always tell them to look up. So what are you talking about? Well, look up. Usually on a mezzanine level, you have a group of engineers that are making this automated process work together and fit together. And so if we just look at how do we replace people with automation, that is one part of it, but it's such a small part of it that if that stays in a silo, we don't get the most amount of benefit. The reduction of and dependency on skilled or unskilled labor is only a part. The most part is creating the best information to drive the maximum throughput and the highest value throughput. That is just as important, if not more important. As we scale business and we look at maintainability, scalability, that information is absolutely critical. And I would just say there's no longer special information. You can go on the internet, go to trade, so anybody that's willing to put the effort into it can find it. Used to strategic secret weapons were special information. The internet, the readily available information has really kind of put that to bed. And so the future belongs to people who are willing to get that information and figure out and be the best at putting it together. That is really the heart and soul about what process automation is. So when people look at what problem should automation solve, so many times people look at it from a single-minded focus of we have this business problem, we have a bottleneck, we have repeatability and quality, tolerances that we need to hold. All kinds of things can go into this. We always say, look, if you're looking at automation, make sure that it solves multiple problems and not just one, and make sure that it fits within this future state end-to-end business process. So you can look here and look, these are just some of the ideas, but I always tell people, if you're looking at this journey with software and automation together, make a list of all the problems that you're going to solve and hit as many of those problems together as you possibly can. So again, when you look at this, what types of automated machinery are there? People look at this, and when they're starting their software journey, sometimes they start their software journey first, sometimes they start their automated machinery journey first, and they really fit together. And so this list is just an example of machinery that we have helped clients put in, integrate, put together. And so if you look at RFID is a big buzzword. More people are beginning to implement it. As we learn about RFID, I'll go back to the information. And so the ability to create visibility for components, subcomponents, subassemblies, final assemblies at all states throughout the manufacturing process is great. What we've seen is if you still create just a large batch of hundreds, thousands of parts, and you assign RFID numbers to them, and they're just in a general large stack, it gives you the visibility that they're there. But what we've seen better is to assign container IDs and then to embed other information in the ID, not just what it is, but to pull up post-processed machining code, but to intelligently batch and create intelligent orders through the factory where as these large groups of components come out of machines, they go directly to a place that are quickly referenced. Carts with slots is a great example. It said as you get the most benefit out of the continuing developing automated machinery by creating the best information for it to use. So I want to talk about something, and it's a word that may be unfamiliar, but an information bottleneck. So in manufacturing processes, we always look at, okay, where are the bottlenecks? And we look at them from a physical standpoint of machinery being able to produce a certain amount within a certain period of time. And what we've learned is that information bottlenecks always preclude a physical bottleneck within the factory. So the ability to begin to make parts together, to keep them together throughout the process, to be available to complete final assemblies, to be together, to get into a truck together, say through a multi-stop delivery process or a multi-truck delivery process. Those are things that have information bottlenecks. And whenever we look at software and creating data from the engineering standpoint, then turning it into manufacturing data, the ability to seamlessly transfer that information in the most efficient way to the factory reduces information bottlenecks. By reducing information bottlenecks, we reduce physical bottlenecks as well. And so the most valuable information to drive automation, what is that? And so we see, hey, a lot of people are data rich and information poor. There is usually a huge opportunity to smooth the scheduling and the MES functions within a factory. And so you can have a lot of data, you can have some good data, and then you can use that data well. And so automated machines, they're only as good as the information that's created for them. A lot of people put machines together and it's a standalone. They may post-process some programs. Batch scheduling is kind of, maybe they do a little bit of it, But when they're looking at the equipment, how does it all fit together? How do we make the most amount of sense out of it, right? The next question is really important, is who must we become to develop and use and execute the best information? Who is it that we must become? Traditionally, our industry was so craftsman skill based that the idea of using information to create the best automation, taking that from a context of I'm producing parts by tribal knowledge on basic equipment. Okay, now how do I automate the engineering of those parts, those subassemblies, final assemblies, etc.? The people that make the best use of this information are the people that revision how it would be used. And so in this journey, it's actually best to do this end-to-end business process. And then as you begin to look at automated machinery to develop the best information flow that then leads to the best physical flow in the factory, and then to build equipment around that information flow within the factory. That requires a mindset that asks questions different than traditionally may have been asked. What software would create the most valuable information? That's another. Software in itself is evolving. We used to have, software that would just post-process, software that was just ERP, software that was just MES. And so a lot of companies just had bolt-on software. And it wasn't really done with a vision of an end-to-end business process. So that is another great question to ask. How would that information best be used and executed in manufacturing with automated machines? A lot of people create data and then they ask the question, okay, now how do we get it to the machine? If that question is asked on the front end, how are we going to post-process? How are we going to put intelligent orders together for post-processing? Those questions are absolutely valuable in creating a good vision here. What information bottlenecks exist? And again, this is really kind of a new concept, or maybe we're framing it in a different way than traditionally we said it. But how could software be used to eliminate them? And this is where looking at the end-to-end business process, whether you're going direct to customer, through dealers, through designers, et cetera, being able to take that data, being able to put it together and to simplify engineering designs, to simplify input, and reduce the amount of steps that it has to take to get to manufacturing data, then to shipping, all the rest of this. And so when you begin to ask these questions, there are so many examples where we have helped people simplify their engineering, reduce the complexity of catalogs. This helps both the designers, the customer on the front end, if they're involved, architects, dealers, and it streamlined not only the amount of time, but the amount of touches, but then also the amount of errors. When people look at engineering errors, the more complex that engineering it is, and the more manually it's done, then the higher possibility that there is for errors. And so these are just questions to begin to ask, but where are those information bottlenecks? Then the last point I just want to make here on this slide is that these should result in a future state end-to-end business process. One of the things that we've done with clients when they start this journey is to put in a spreadsheet, and from first customer touch, the very beginning of the process, all the way down to a delivered product, throughout the warranty process, and everything in between. What is a future state business process? Not just copying what we're doing. So many times when this journey has started, whether it's software, machinery, or both together, it's just, well, how do we copy what we're already doing? In this process of identifying a future state end-to-end business process, eventually you should say, hey, look, if we don't have information bottlenecks, if we have a clean slate, right, what would we create? And you may not have the budget to get everything that winds up in that list, but what you can have is a future and a vision, and you're creating things that fit together. You're creating the opportunity to put things together where they fit together. You're asking questions that maybe not have been asked before. And so that is one of the most valuable things that we can do. And I would say this is where I would really, really say when we look at software, if you look at Insight and in their home screen, it's an end-to-end business process. And then you go into the segments from that. So I would just say this is probably the hardest. It should be the hardest part. The implementation of it is then a strategic implementation, and that you have an end-to-end business process that's casting that vision for implementation. So the last point that I wanted to make here is that who makes the best out of automation? And this is such an important question to ask because, again, if you look at our industry, craftsman mentality, there's so much we could say about that, and it's evolved in stages, right? Automation still requires monitoring, maintenance, troubleshooting, problem solving. So one of the lies about automation is we just put these machines in and we replace all these people. It really does not work that way. If we ask the questions, it will lead us to different ideas, to different understanding of how do we maximize the throughput and the most valuable throughput through our manufacturing process. The reliability and monitoring and maintenance and troubleshooting is key if you're going to keep machinery working, along with the data that is being driven to the machinery. I would say if you have a person in your organization with an architect type personality, that is one of the most beneficial parts of who it is that makes the best use of information and automation. And that architect is, again, asking them those questions in the organization, driving things to fit together and to make the most amount of sense out of them. This can attract new people. Hopefully it does. Our industry needs new blood. It constantly needs fresh ideas. It needs people coming in and challenging how things are done. And I want to make this point at the last part to try to bring this together. The best information enables the best use of automated machinery. And so as we began to look at that, that is not just a one and done type thing. That is a constant question that we should continue to ask. And so if you ever start getting down into the weeds and you start asking yourself a question, okay, well, how are we going to do this? How are we going to do this? So many people want to look at software machine and they want to, okay, can it do this? Can it do this? Can it do this? The best way to take this end-to-end business process is to create the information flow, then the physical flow beneath that, and then the machinery, and then ask, okay, what data do we need to drive? What material handling would it facilitate the data if we were to drive it? If we're creating RFID tags from our thing, how can we put them in a place like a cart? You can have an RFID tag on a cart, and so you can know these parts are on this cart. They're not just somewhere, they're in a specific place. And so I don't want to jump into those answers, but if you go through this questioning, you can come up with a future state business process that will drive the most amount of value in creating automated machinery, working with information. And so I'm so thankful to spend time. I can't wait to get into the Q&A. I want to introduce Jason Varelli. Jason is a longtime friend, business colleague. I'm so excited that we do these things together. As you transition, I just want to segue into the equipment side is working with the information that's being passed to it. So really excited to hear what Jason shares with us. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Hello, Joe. Thank you very much for the introduction. I'm Jason Varelli. I am the VP of Lines for the Wood Division for both BSA America and Canada. This just means I'm responsible for all of the projects that involve high levels of interconnectivity of machines. Today, within the Automation and Operational Excellence, I'm going to be talking about the next steps in automation, and I am going to focus on two different things. I'm going to focus on machine tending as well as the assembly line. Starting with machine tending, this is something that is growing in popularity, and many of you who have been to the shows in the United States in the last 2 years have seen more and more of. Machine tending can be something as simple as adding a return conveyor onto an edge bander, but in this case, we're going to talk about adding a robot to unload a nested base machine. Here in the layout, you see a robot on the right side, which is unloading a nesting machine. This is the easy part. The magic happens what it does after it unloads the part. Utilizing the data for each individual part ID or article code, if you will, we know what the next steps need to be. The data is transferred, I shouldn't say the data, the article code is transferred from the CNC to the robot. Then the robot has the instruction based on that article code to know what to do. It can either load a bore and dowel machine, which in this case is at the top of the cell there. You see it in purple and dark green. We also have the ability to unload the parts when done, and done can mean a couple of different things. So starting with the bore and dowel machine, when the robot unloads the CNC, it is able to load the bore and dowel machine to get the first edge and then do the rotation to get the second edge, and then has options on what to do from there, again based on what has to happen to the part. Internal to the robot, it has the ability to store parts and do light sorting. What are the benefits of each and how might you utilize them? Let's start with the part storage and light sorting. Let's say you are running several sheets in a row which have different thicknesses and or different colors of laminate or veneer. You may also have downstream different colors of edge banding that is required. So first, let's look at the colors of edge banding. You are able to store parts within the robotic cell that get, say, green, blue, purple edge banding, and then send them out all together. So you could send out the 15 that get blue edge banding, and then the 15 that get red, and 15 that get purple, etc. Versus sending out one after the other, one green, one red, one purple, which is going to hurt the efficiency on your edge bander, especially if you only have a single coil magazine. So here is one benefit. A second benefit and or different benefit would be to run smaller batches, say by room or multiple rooms, kitchens, etc., and then use the storage within the robot to send the parts out as a kit, be it one cabinet in a little stack, second cabinet in a little stack, third cabinet in a little stack, etc., and go from there. This is going to allow you to keep parts together as you go downstream. Think of a smaller cabinet manufacturer who's making a few kitchens a day, the benefit that thus brings them, as it eliminates the need to do the kitting later. You could have a small factory utilizing this solution to produce the parts, assemble the cabinets, and only have a small amount of labor because you do not have a person who is managing this line, and the data is running the line for you. Moving forward, let's talk about the assembly line. This is a very large topic and something that a lot of people have issues with, meaning labor and labor volume. You may or may not have the data to utilize to take the next step, but I would venture to say just about everybody does. They are just not utilizing it. Starting with organization, are you organized or not? Then we'll move into the benefits of a larger batch size. How do you move parts, and how many times do you touch parts, all of which are very important. Starting with organized or not, we're going to talk about part sorting, or in your case, maybe not part sorting. If you have a large batch size or a small batch size, whatever it might be, when you get down to the end of your production and you have the assembly area, just about everybody is kitting parts. And this is obviously a non-value added solution, or I shouldn't say solution, process. Adding automatic or semi-automated part sorting eliminates a tremendous amount of non-value added labor. However, to sort parts automatically, we need to have data, meaning a grandparent, parent, child, grandchild relationship for each individual box, if you will, cabinet, what have you. We would receive the parts randomly, if you will, and then put them into a sorting system and take them out based on a predetermined schedule. When you have a sorting system, you are able to have larger batch sizes and change the way you batch your production. Why is this a benefit? If today you are running your batches by one kitchen at a time, but you're running, say, 10, 15, 20 kitchens a day, and you have 3 or 4 different colors, you could batch all of the same color together. So all of your white parts together, all of your black parts together, your purple parts together, whatever it might be. Or you may decide to batch all of your doors together, all of your drawers together, all of your end panels together, whatever it might be. Everyone has their own methods and madness to why they do what they do. But if you do that, and then you send all the parts into a sorting system, you produce in a random fashion, we send out in a very organized fashion for assembly. Now, going down to the bottom here, talking about the dependence, the batch size I just talked about, volume is highly irrelevant, as the problem, as I was saying before, remains the same. If your volume is medium, you could have a smaller batch size and increase your velocity through the factory. And when I mean velocity, I mean the movement of the parts through the factory. If your batches are big and your volume is bigger, you are able to do what I said before, which is slicing those batches into smaller parts by whatever that might be. Again, thickness, species, color, edge banding color, whatever. The imagination is your limit. We are able to bend some rules when we do this, and we have less rigidity. And all the while we're maintaining velocity, which, as I said before, is the most important thing, increasing velocity through the factory. The one main thing for sorting, and going back to that grandparent, parent, child, grandchild relationship, as I mentioned before, is the data. You have all this information, and everyone knows how many parts go in to make a cabinet. They know which parts go in to make a cabinet or box, what have you. And most people are doing this kitting manually, so having parts arriving to an assembly area, be it flat on a conveyor, vertical in a cart, horizontal on a cart, whatever it might be, and then you pick parts from the various places, cart 1, cart 2, cart 3, conveyor 1, conveyor 2, conveyor 3, whatever it might be, and then you have all your parts to assemble. And you're doing this with a piece of paper, you're doing this by tribal knowledge, who knows, everyone does it differently. But imagine doing it with an automatic sorting system, and you start to see the benefits of what a machine or solution like this is able to do. Here you can see 2 different solutions for automatic part sorting. In the end, while they operate differently, they provide the same benefit. The one on the bottom sorts the parts horizontally, while the one on top does them vertically. This can be a difference in volume. It can be the difference in space. You name it, there can be different automated sorting solutions for different people, depending on your demand. For example, you could have 1 of these robots, you could have 3 of these robots in a line. The largest I have seen is 6 robots in a line. The sorting system that has 6 robots is sorting 24,000 doors, holds 24,000 doors, which is 3 days of production, and outputs 6,000 doors a day. This way the client is able to know 2 days in advance if all of the doors are in stock and available. The one on the bottom is a kitchen manufacturer. In this case, it's a small kitchen manufacturer who wanted part sorting and realized the benefits immediately. The output of their edge bander is linked to the input of the sorting. So now they can edge band. Sorry, in that customer's case, he has a multi-coil edge bander, so it doesn't matter how he sends the parts into the edge bander. He could have different edges, colors coming out at the same time, and then it goes into the sorting and it goes out automatically in the right sequence for his assembly line. And on the assembly line, they have multiple thicknesses that go into an individual box, and they all come out in the right sequence to assemble. It's the same thing with the red robot on the top. Parts come out in the right sequence to assemble. Or if you have a more automated factory, they're going out into an automated assembly line where we're doing automatic insertion, etc. Neither one of these two things is not possible without the schedule and the rigidity of the schedule that we follow. Meaning, if in either one of these you want to assemble a kitchen or a room, you may want to assemble those cabinets in a sequence: cabinet 1, cabinet 2, cabinet 3, cabinet 4, etc. And you want to bring the parts out in a very sequenced way. For example, you're building a box. I want to bring out the right, the top, the bottom, the back, 2 back rails, and then the left, and then go into your case clamp and then start the next one, and then the next one, and the next one, etc. I hope you can start to see the benefit of both machine tending as well as our organized part sorting for assembly to reduce the demand and reliance on labor, but increasing your reliance on the data that you already have. With that said, I will pass this on to Bryce, and he will further expand on this portion of the discussion. Thank you for your time.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason. Much appreciated. It wouldn't be a Syncly webinar if I didn't take a second just to speak high level again of who is Syncly and really why partner with Syncly. And I think it's important to do because obviously I think most of you are probably familiar with Syncly because of a historical relationship on kind of two ends of the spectrum. On the point of sale retail side with 2020 design, CAP, Giza worksheet, the way in which many manufacturers go to market, or 2020 Insight. Both are all historical 2020 technology companies and products. However, I would say Syncly today, post the merger between 2020 and CompuSoft, is much more broad, much more ambitious, and almost triple the size of an organization than 2020 would have been 3 years ago. So the amount of resources and investment back into the solutions and the overall platform is bigger and better than it ever has been. And so really at Syncly, our goal is to partner with retailers on one end, but specifically in our case, manufacturers, to help manufacturers get from quote to close to manufacturing really in the fastest, most efficient way possible, all while providing the right data to the right people at the right time. And so whether that's capturing a customer and engaging with them from an inspiration much sooner than maybe would have been in the past on the sales cycle, all the way into order accuracy, configuration, accurate pricing, accurate engineering. All of this is going to allow for accurate manufacturing and at the end, an on-time delivery and a happy customer. So our software is really connecting those dots and automating that flow from inspiration to installation. So we're focused on helping manufacturers be leaner, faster to market, better overall in how they operate, and at the end of the day, more cost effective. And so Syncly really as a differentiator sits on the largest database of furniture and retail manufacturing in this vertical industry in the world by far, which I would say is heavily driving our current AI roadmap and product roadmap. And I bring this up because I know it's such a hot topic. We today have 30 employees at Syncly, engineers that are working with this enormous data set to figure out the best way to leverage AI and push it back into all of our solutions within the organization. So that's who Syncly that's who we've become. And yeah, it's a really exciting time that we're in here. So what I want to do is I want to take a step back and really just talk through what we're hearing as a software provider about what the market is wanting. And when I think of the market, I'm really thinking about what manufacturers are hearing about or challenges that they're facing. And I would say there is absolutely a growing demand for customization out in the market. And so we know that today there's a lot of squeeze on imports. And one thing that we definitely know imports cannot do well is handle customization. And so I think being a domestic manufacturer, being able to support customization really helps address that competitive advantage that you all have. But at the end of the day, I would say customers are really demanding that. And so customization doesn't always equal, operational efficiency or streamlining processes, but it's certainly something that we're talking more and more about of how do we automate and automate the order validation of customs or specials coming into the organization. That's something that we certainly can tackle through software. Um, Also, speed to market. Historically, maybe as an organization, you did a product launch every 2 years or a big one every year. We're hearing more and more and more the desire to do small quarterly or as product is ready launches to continue with just the competitive advantage that provides you as a manufacturer. And then the other thing is manufacturers being able to become more of an omni-channel or hybrid model where historically maybe you went to market through the traditional dealer path and that was kind of it. More and more and more manufacturers are starting to dip their toes into direct-to-consumer, e-commerce channels, as well as the historical B2B channels that have always been out there. So all of these are areas we're hearing about, and it's something that we are building into our platform to help manufacturers become more efficient. And so if we look at the Syncly manufacturing platform, it's really starting with now post, this merger, and now that we've actually brought two historical products together natively under one platform, we are able to really start from a source database. That source database can be pushed out to help drive those go-to-market sales engine channels, whatever that may be for you as a manufacturer. Sales, marketing, consumer engagement, B2B specific solutions, B2C specific solutions, all feeding back from one centralized data set, which is parametric models, it's engineering data, but that is also then able to be leveraged to feed into manufacturing on the back end of the house. And so now that we have this platform, that is where we're able to have really a holistic view from end to end and provide data back like we've never been able to provide to manufacturers before. I'll give you an example. Imagine under this platform, if it's both your go-to-market sales engine and feeding manufacturing, the ability now to have visibility into not only the orders that came in and reacting to those out on the shop floor, but also being able to see every single quote that's out there in your go-to-market channels and be able to predict forecasts based off of not only what's sold, but what's sitting in various quote stages. And so feeding that information back into a manufacturer is extremely powerful. And those are the types of things that we're really able to support now at this point at Syncly. And so all of this data, at the end of the day, if we go back to data, because that is really the most important thing, or the most important part of the software integration discussion is data. Data is really the key to your success and improvement. In today's day and age, it's a lot more than just information. It's really become the cornerstone of how businesses are operating. And I'll get into some examples here in a minute about how some of our own customers are pulling the data back out of the platform and pushing that back into machines, processes, key meetings. But the kind of the word map over there really explains it well. But data is really allowing you to make smarter decisions faster decisions and have real-time views into all ends of the spectrum. Um, it's driving the operational efficiencies. It's allowing you to innovate a lot faster in your development roadmaps. And I would say overall, it's just increasing the customer experience because you're able to understand an order from front to back much better than you maybe ever could in the past. And so the next thing I want to do is I want to take a few minutes and talk through a couple of scenarios where we can capture that data and leverage it out into the shop floor. And so the first example of that being um, our service module, which within Insight is where really we can tie into all of your equipment out on the shop floor and predict, schedule, reroute various steps and routings based off of what you set up for those machines. So imagine having a dashboard that not only monitors machine performance across the production lines, but is also predicting when a machine is likely to fail or needs maintenance. And so these predictive machine schedules or dashboards can use that real-time data from what's happening out on the shop floor with also historical information based off of performance metrics to forecast machinery downtime. So you can prevent those unexpected breakdowns. You can optimize the actual throughput of your machine. Jason won't love this one because I know he likes to sell machines, but extending equipment lifespan of those machines because you are doing the regular maintenance that you should be doing. And then overall improving that resource allocation. So being able to quickly reroute and plan those routings for employees calling in sick, machines going down, rather than this being a scramble last minute because Joe didn't come into work. This can all be scheduled into the routings, and as actions happen on the shop floor, the needed changes can take place to ensure that the efficiency of the day is still there out on the plant. So that's just one example of really connecting the software into machines to help support real-time data and real-time decisions. The next one is advanced forecasting. And I know I kind of spoke to this a little bit when we're thinking about forecasting what's out there on the quote stage and the sales side of the house. But just imagine having that comprehensive visibility into overall volumes of orders, stock levels, shipping schedules, all in one place. And so our solutions are capturing all of this data. We build most of our dashboards through Power BI. I think most people use BI, but at the end of the day, you can use anything, any dashboard tool that you want, just pulling the data out of the software. But our advanced forecasting dashboard, really, it's integrating real-time data with historical trends to provide you those predictions for supply chain to help support an enhanced, forecast capability. And so one example I want to talk through, and I'm going to dig in a little bit further here in the next slide with Technion is to help support an enhanced, forecast capability. And so one example I want to talk through, and I'm going to dig in a little bit further here in the next slide with Technion is in the shop. I know they are scanning where every single job is in the cells and the various zones. And so every day, the plant manager is able to use this data to track capacity and scheduling for the next day's shift and the data that he pulls directly out of Insight from all those hand scans of knowing where jobs are at, knowing what was done the previous day, is the data in the dashboard that is used by the plant manager every single morning for the management meeting for that day's shift. And so, again, just real life examples of how our manufacturing partners are leveraging data to make smarter decisions and drive that operational efficiency. And so I want to talk through two manufacturing partners of ours, both Technion and Belmont, which I will actually also follow up a video here after, or two videos here after the webinar for all of those that attended, where, each one's about 8 to 10 minutes long, and it really dives in from front to back, how Technion and Belmont are using the full stack at Syncly, but also showing how it's connecting into the machines. And at the end of the day, all of that was visioned and planned through consultants like Joe and others out there in the industry. And so one other example I wanted to give on Technion, and you've probably read through it by now since I got to the slide, but Jay Rook, who's the leader of wood manufacturing systems there at Technion, explained how after they've implemented the full Syncly platform, so this is CAP, Giza, Worksheet, CET, feeding into Insight, they were really able to automate so much of that order entry process, the customs, the standard specials, as the furniture market calls them, that they were able to reallocate almost 70% of their engineering staff to other parts of the business. Of course, everybody's dealing with labor shortage, and if you can free up engineers to do better things than order validation and custom pricing on specials, that's a huge win. And so I think that's a really great example of how Technion was able to streamline that order entry to manufacturing process to where today they estimate about 75% of their orders that come in are not touched at all from the time they come into the business to the time they hit the manufacturing schedule. And so, again, just real life example of how software can help streamline the process from Inspire all the way into manufacturing and delivery. The other one being Belmont Cabinetry. Belmont is another phenomenal partner of ours at Syncly, and we were out there actually exactly a year ago today shooting this video, which we launched it early this year, to really showcase from front to back, from design lab all the way into manufacturing and their whole RFID process that they put into place, the amount of efficiency they've been able to gain across the board. And you've obviously probably seen the quote here from Tyler, the one of the brothers and the CEO on the sales and marketing side at Belmont. But phenomenal team, phenomenal operation, quality product, and they've been able to do so much with ourselves at Syncly, and I know BSA as well as a huge partner of theirs, to really drive the amount of automation and data visibility that they have coming back out of their two plants. So I do want to take a minute to show a clip of Belmont here, which again I'll follow up with the full video, but it's a couple minutes here, and I see Tim actually give Tim a shout out because I see he signed up for the webinar. I think he joined. I'm sure he did, but I think Tim really captures the essence of data coming into the manufacturing process, feeding machines, and what you're able to get back out of those machines back into the software. So really tying a bow on this entire discussion. And so with that, I'm gonna start this video with Tim Dick at Belmont Cabinetry.
My name is Tim. I'm in charge of Insight ERP within Belmont. Once our orders have been approved through our system and optimized in batches, they're sent down to the WinStore, which pulls all of the material. It can feed both our nested-based routers and our panel saws. All the data comes straight from Insight into the WinStore. The WinStore interprets all the machine posts that comes from the machines and then can load all of our machines so that all the parts can be cut for all the orders. One of my favorite parts of Insight is the Gen Post piece. It's a single file that goes through the secondary post-processing that can then generate CNC files for all of your machines on the floor. So you end up with one CNC program name that you can put on a barcode on a part, but each machine that then needs to process some sort of operation, whether it be doweling or dados or line boring, they can all read that same CNC program name, but do different machine steps based on the routing operation setup within Insight. It reduces the number of labels, it reduces paperwork, and it gives you full control over all of your data, as Insight can just handle all of this through one operational step.
Thank you, Tim. Again, if you're on the call for the helping hand there and kind of summarize this whole conversation. But again, I think this brings us to the Q&A portion. Really appreciate all of you taking the time to join us today. I know myself, Jason, Joe, we would love to dig deeper with any of you that are interested. We could jump into a joint call. We could tackle conversations individually. Absolutely reach out. We certainly will, to see if we can provide any more information. And one thing I will mention is you know, I think today we had, Synccly, IWPS, BSA kind of joining this conversation, which certainly there are dozens and dozens of projects that we're working on right now collectively within various manufacturers. There's other great vendors out there as well. I'll mention on the consulting side, ITE, Lignum, another partner of ours that we do a lot of work with, and then on the machine side, I would say it's certainly BSA and HOMAG are the go-tos with the market share throughout North America. But as you just saw in the Belmont video, that's a project that the BSA WinStore feeding 5, nested base routers. There's a lot of automation going on there at Belmont and at Technion, and these are the types of discussions that we love to get into. And there's partners out there that can really help you guys to drive the automation and operational excellence that may be part of your FY25 plans. Maybe we start the conversation, next year, but certainly reach out. The three of us would love to dig in deeper. And thanks again for joining. So with that, we'll jump into the Q&A portion.